You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey, Happy New Year. It's 2019. Can you believe that? 2019. Like when you were a kid, did you think you'd make it to 2019? I didn't. I had no concept of time until late in the game. You feel, there's two weird things about it. You feel like you're going to live forever. But then you're like, 2019? No, I'll never make it to 2019. I'll never make it to 2000. Oh, really? It's not that far away. Well, here we are, and yet we have no flying cars, we have no food replicators, we're close to getting a holodeck. So once we get a holodeck, I'll never leave the house. I'll spend the day with Counselor Troy down in the holodeck. But anyways, what we do have is we have lost video stores. You know, we've lost them. The first sign of trouble was Redbox that said you don't need to go to the video store to get a movie. You could get a movie from a machine at the grocery store. You know, you just got to bring it back the next day. That was always the trouble with Redbox. Is we used Redbox quite a bit. I mean, I'm a movie junkie. We used Redbox quite a bit in the beginning because I have to have movies. But I remember every time the movie would pop out, I'd go, within 24 hours, I'm going to be back here at one of these machines putting this movie back in. So I figured out finally that Redbox will sell you a used movie. So you can rent it for like $1 or $2, but you can usually you buy the movie for like $5. So for a while, I was just buying used movies out of the Redbox. And then Netflix came around. I mean, we did the rent by mail thing quite a bit. I did the Blockbuster one, which was a total. I mean, the Blockbuster rent by mail thing was the greatest thing ever. I rode that thing until they literally shut it down. You know, I never canceled my Blockbuster rent by mail program. Instead, they shut it down, and one day they just stopped sending movies. And you had to send them back in, and then they closed your account, and they were out of business. But that was, the brick and mortar stores were still open, but their rent by mail thing was a disaster. And it was a disaster because they allowed the consumer to work the system in that I was on like the 3-movie plan, and it was really cheap. It was like $10 a month, but the gimmick was, once you've finished watching the movie at home, you didn't have to mail it in and wait, because there was always a day hiccup. It took a day for the movie to get to the Blockbuster distribution center. They would mark it as received, and then a day would go by before you'd get the new one. So like 3 days between movies. And when you're a junkie like me, or at the time, this was when TV on DVD was still new, and you could rent one disc out of the 5 or 6 disc set that only had 1 or 2 episodes on it. I remember Bill and I were going through 6 Feet Under on disc. But what they offered was you could go to the video store, the actual Blockbuster store, scan the disc there, and they would mark it immediately as received and send the next one out. And for thanking you for going in the store, you could get a rental there. And the rental there, this was back, 2004, 5, something like that. They still had a few years left in them, but they were at the, rent them for a week thing. So I would get the movie in the mail. Here's the thing. I didn't even watch the movies I got in the mail. right? I would get them in the mail, and I would run right to the Blockbuster, trade them for the 6 Feet Under disc that I was on, watch that, and had plenty of time to watch that because the movies are now still coming in the mail. I'm allowed 3 through the mail, but unlimited, virtually unlimited, through Blockbuster. So there were times I would have 10 or 15 movies out, and the employees knew what I was doing, but I wasn't breaking any rules. I mean, if you listen to this show at all, as I've grown older, I don't break rules. What I do is I take advantage of the rules that you've set up. And if you get mad about that, that's not my problem. Because a lot of businesses, and if you've listened to my customer service episode, which I think I'm going to repost because I'm going to try to do a sequel to it, a lot of rules are put into place by companies hoping that you're too shy to ask for them. Because most people are too shy to ask for things because you don't want to seem greedy or a certain way, and I get all that. But you're only that way if you're asking for something above and beyond. But if you're just asking for whatever the rule is, I always look at them in the eye and go, hey, you guys put this together, not me. Why are you yelling at me and getting upset with me for trying to take advantage of something that you're offering? You know? Or they'll do, well, we'll do it this time. What do you mean you'll do it this time? It's on the plaque here. Somebody went to the trouble to make a plaque about this policy, and you're doing it to be like, now it's a favor? So, whatever. That's not what this episode's about. So, Blockbuster died, and now we have Netflix, and I enjoy Netflix. Somebody was very kind enough to gift Netflix to me, so I am very grateful for that. But Netflix movie selection sucks. They only have like a few new movies. They have here's the thing. I'm a catalog movie guy. I like older movies. I like obscure movies. Go on Netflix and you're out of luck, you know, and their algorithm of what they think you might like, since they don't have the one you want, you might like this one. The ones they suggest are usually terrible movies. You know, I've watched more schlock on Netflix than I ever did on Cinemax. But that's not a knock against Netflix, because sometimes they do have, like, thank God for Netflix at this point, because my wife and daughter, Josie and Rachel, have watched The Office so many times that without Netflix, I would have had to buy literally every season of The Office, and I would have to stand at the PlayStation and feed discs all day in and out of that thing the way they watch The Office. They watch it like, they gobble it up like popcorn. So I am very grateful for the gifting of Netflix and very grateful for The Office being on there. That being said, I remember when Netflix announced that they were going to do a show called House of Cards. And I thought, well, that's weird, because I thought Netflix was a movie streaming service. And the idea that they would have original content was alien to me. Like, it seems so obvious now to have original content to draw viewers in. But at the time, it was revolutionary. Like, so there's a series, and they film the whole series, and they're going to release the whole series at one time at Netflix. So if you want to watch all, you know, whatever many episodes there are in season 1, all at once, you can. That seemed weird to me, because even late in the game, Hulu did the Stephen King adaptation of 11/22/63, where 63, the one where Kennedy gets shot. It's a time travel one. And they only released one per month, the same way that CBS is doing with Star Trek Discovery. And I get that, because it's like, oh, if you want to watch the whole season, you have to subscribe for X number of months. I'm old, I get that. But most people want it now. They don't want to wait. There are a lot of people, I don't know anybody like this, but apparently there are a lot of people in this planet, in this country, that can binge watch an hour-long drama all day and sit and watch 8, 9, 10 episodes the whole day. Rachel and Josie would probably do that with The Office, but The Office episodes are 22 minutes long. So after 3 of them, which is about an hour, I'm restless. I've had enough. I look at Rachel and I go, I can't do this anymore. I have to get up. The idea of binge watching, which is a term that I despise. Oh, we're binge watching. Okay, good for you. I don't have that kind of time. I wish I did. You know, I want to work on things. I'm a creator. I like to make things. You know, I'm watching a movie right now. My son just chastised me because I'm watching National Treasure. He says, Austin says, Dad, you're better than this. I said, it's entertaining. And I wanted to be entertained. It's schmoozy, schlocky entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. But I turned it off because I've watched about half of it. That's great. And now I need to sit and do an episode because I'm creative. You know, I know people. Most of my friends are creative. You know, you go on Facebook and they're showing you their creations. And I look at that and I go, oh, that, you know, Noel is making an ice cavern for Dungeons and Dragons. And I get all excited, like, oh, I need to make something like that. So I get that. And the idea that Netflix was releasing these TV shows and not catalog, because catalog you're picking and choosing, you know, but new content starring Kevin Spacey, who at the time was arguably one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He's fallen since. And Robin Wright. And it was directed by either Alan Ball or Sam Mendes, one of those guys. I thought, that's interesting. That's a game changer because you're legitimizing the platform as not just a service like the gas company, but instead they're a studio because they're producing content. And they started buying up independent films to put on and then putting their own movies into production. I get all that. That's changed the way people are entertained. Again, I feel like the Netflix library for a nerd goofball like me is a little limited. 99 times out of 100, I go to Netflix for a specific movie. It's not there. And that's my fault. Because the movies I want are very specific. They're very archaic. So a guy like me who thought, just a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm going to stop buying physical media because there's no point to it. Now, because of 2 things. One, the Netflix limited library. Like, if I want to get all the movies that I want, I'm going to have to subscribe to so many services. I might as well... I mean, you're going to double the price of my cable bill substantially because of the amount of services I need to get all the movies that I want. And second, it was the guy from iTunes who made a big stink because one of his movies was no longer in his library. And when he contacted iTunes, they said, oh, you don't actually own that movie. You were just leasing it. And now that the company that owns the movie no longer wants to lease it to you, you're done. And the movie's gone. Well, that terrified me because... to me, I've always said this on the show, good movies are like my friends. We have good times together. They remind me of good times. I remember going to the theater to see these movies or hanging out with friends watching these movies. And the idea that I can't access them, like somebody would keep me from watching them even after I had made that digital purchase, that's ridiculous. That's completely nuts. So I've become a hoarder of discs, Blu-ray and DVD. And I buy at least 2 or 3 at the thrift store every time I go because I see these movies that are not available anywhere. They're out of print. And if you want to watch them, that's the only way you're going to get a chance to watch them. Isn't that fascinating? In 2019 now, your choice of movies is now limited. Netflix says, well, these are the movies we have. You enjoy them. If you don't like these ones, here's some more different ones we'll suggest. But it's not the one you want. Oh. And if you go to Target, their movie selection has been chopped less than half. They don't carry a lot of movies. Walmart carries a lot of movies. The problem is, good luck finding the one you want because there's no rhyme or reason to the way they're organized. You know, but I go to the thrift store, and because I know, what I want, I'm able to pick those gems out of there. And a lot of movies are like, the movies I'm talking about are like classic movies that only had one disc run, or 70s movies and a lot of 80s movies. A lot of 80s movies now are being packaged four in a package. You know, here's the totally 80s collection, and it's got 4 movies. But like one of those is a rare movie because it never had its own disc release. So I'm buying a lot of those, and I just feel like eventually, I mean, my dream is to create my own fake video store like Cinemassacre or Slashback, and I just want to sit in it. I mean, it's so weird to think that I spent so many hours and years, literally years of my life, standing at a video store and hoping for something better and something else. And now as I'm older, the thought of sitting in my own video store is so comforting to me. With a monitor on, playing a movie, available to rent. That just seems so, it's so weird to me. But also, it's totally right, and I totally get it. And it's a goal to strive for. I even have my vest from Multi-Video that I can wear when I sit in it. So, hey, you have to have goals, right? But all of this is because over the Christmas holiday, I partook of everybody else, the movie that everybody else partook of. And that's the Sandra Bullock starring, Netflix created film called Birdbox. And Birdbox, they crowed a lot about Birdbox, pardon the pun, and said that over 45 million people had watched this thing. Those are internal Netflix numbers. They've not been verified. Nobody knows if that's true. I do know that I know people who have signed deals with Netflix because I've met some celebrities. I'm privy to a little bit of that, and they do get paid an upfront fee, and then they can negotiate a per watch bonus, of just pennies. But when you're talking the number of people watching, that number of, I want to say downloads, but it's not a download, that number of streams, you can get very high up. I know that for a while, The Ridiculous Six, the Adam Sandler Netflix movie, was the number one watch thing on there. But that was because they had fixed it so that when you finished watching a program, it immediately dialed over to The Ridiculous Six and started playing the trailer for it and the first few minutes. So that counted as a watch, which I think is, that's hinky, but hey, they run their business the way they run their business. Now, it's different with Bird Box because arguably Sandra Bullock's a bigger star. So Josie and I watched it. Luna watched a little. Rachel flitted in and out. But it was mostly Josie and myself watching it. I had to explain to her who Sandra Bullock was because she has no concept. Weird to think that the big movie stars of the late 80s, and, Sandra Bullock was a 90s star from, she had done a few movies in the 80s, but, we're talking Speed and Speed 2 and While You Were Sleeping and The Net. She was a massive, massive movie star. Josie has no idea who she is. But that's all right. Julia Roberts, the only way Josie knows Julia Roberts is from Wonder as the mom. That's it. No other. These stars have just not stayed, and I always find that interesting in that because you think movie stars are forever, but they do slide off the scale quite a bit. Jim Carrey is going to play Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic movie, so all bets are off as far as how long stardom lasts. So we watched Bird Box, and oh my god, I did an episode. You can hear me stuttering. I did an episode, and I don't remember exactly what I was talking about. So it might have been Terminator Genesis, where I talked about these franchises that they start, and they deliberately hold back key information because they're going to reveal that in the sequel. You know, in Terminator Genesis, it was that somebody sent a T-800 further back in time to befriend Sarah Connor when she was a child. And they didn't tell us who sent her the robot back. They were going to save that for the sequel. Well, there was no sequel. Even though the movie actually made a lot of money, critically it was roasted, and rightfully so. It's a terrible, terrible movie. And yet, they had hopes of a sequel, but there's no sequel, so we're never going to find out that information. Instead, they're rebooting it again. They're actually rebooting it again. So, because of the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've accepted movies that give us a little kernel of information and then promise it in the next one. The difference is, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there is going to be a next one. Imagine if at the end of Infinity War, Sam Jackson sends that call to Captain Marvel, and then they don't make the Captain Marvel movie. Well, that sounds crazy, but that's what these other lesser franchises are doing, setting up phone calls and plot threads and then never following up on them because the movies are so bad, like The Mummy, the Tom Cruise Dark Universe, which is not going to happen, even though they fully announced it and hired people and paid them, and it's never going to happen. But along those same lines, we've accepted that you don't have to, I was going to say you don't have to explain everything, but I'm okay with not explaining everything. You know, I don't need to know that Han Solo got his name because his name was Han and he was traveling solo. I don't need to know that. In fact, I wish I didn't know that. And if there was a movie version of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind where I could go and have the Solo movie removed from my brain, I would pay for it. But maybe explain everything is not the correct word. Instead, the correct word is, movies don't have to explain everything, but they do have to make sense, and they have to be logical, and they have to follow the rules set up in that universe. I'm a big fan of that. Whatever the rules are in this universe, and you set it up, you have to follow it. And when movies don't, is when they go off the rails, is when they don't follow through on what they themselves have told you, then we got problems. And I get it. Not every film is going to mesh like Back to the Future. Or I just watched Paddington, where everything is set up and then pays off at the end. Paddington 2, even better. A brilliant movie, you know. And if you'd have told me that I would enjoy a talking bear movie, I would have said you were crazy. And yet, I took a chance, I took a risk, and I was floored at how entertaining and gorgeous it was. It was on par with a Wes Anderson movie. That's how gorgeous it was. But the newer thing is these movies things just happen and they don't explain them. They don't make sense. And that's supposed to be mysterious. Okay. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. I write novels. I'm working on the 5th novel in my series. And a lot of times I will take a 2-week break between writing sessions to try to figure out a plot point so that it is a setup, it makes sense, and then it pays off. And that's agonizing, but that's, to me, that's what writing is. That's why Hemingway blew his brains out. Because you care so much about the project that anything less than perfection hurts your brain. And here we have these movies, Birdbox, where logic's out the window. And they just sort of go, they just shrug and they go, whatever. And I'm not talking about the idea of never showing the monster, which they never show the monster, except in some charcoal drawings. That's fine. If that's the choice you want to make of never showing the monster, I will, you know what? I'll go with you on that. That's not my problem with the movie. There are many problems with this stupid Bird Box movie. It is so stupid. And it's stupid because it has such a great setup. And it feels like it's really going to build towards something different. And instead, it's just The Happening meets The Quiet Place meets I Am Legend, right? It's all these apocalypse movies. It's kind of like The Road. If you ever, no, I don't think anybody even saw The Road. That's the Cormac McCarthy novel turned movie about the apocalypse, where, again, nothing is explained. The characters don't even have names. The book is hard to read because it's so freaking bleak. You know, there's a point where they're even eating babies to stay alive, right? It's implied, or eating people. But there are scenes of beauty in it, like they find a Coke machine, and the father gives the kid a Coke, and and says, "This is the last one of these, so make it last. Like, enjoy it." He doesn't take a drink of it. It's only for the kid because he knows what a Coke tastes like, but the kid doesn't. It's a really touching scene. But the book will make you want to kill yourself because it's so bleak, and the movie's just as harrowing, but it's well made. Even though they don't explain anything. What ended the Earth? What ended civilization? We don't know. Where are they going? We don't know. Right? But it never asks you to take giant leaps. At no point in The Road do the characters sprout wings and fly into the sky. Right? And yet in Bird Box, not that anybody sprouts wings, but there are huge leaps that you go, well, I don't understand. You haven't told us any of this. So, Bird Box opens up with Sandra Bullock's a painter. She's pregnant. Sarah Paulson is her sister. And I read somewhere that somebody thought in the first few minutes that they were a lesbian couple. And I'm like, no, the dialogue clearly states that she had a relationship with somebody and now she's pregnant with a baby. And that they're sisters. I mean, they even say something, it's one of those movie lines where it's like, well, you're the sister. Like, okay, they're sisters. They watch on TV that something's going on in civilization in Europe where people are just attacking each other. And it's all very vague. But it's very human in that Sandra Bullock says, well, it's not happening here, so I don't care. So they go to the doctor. They see an ultrasound of the baby. This is all setting up that the world's going to end any moment now. And Sandra Bullock not only will have to survive whatever is happening, but she'll have to do it pregnant with the time ticking away till the baby's due. And hey, you know what? That's a great setup. You have sympathy. She's going to be a mother. Here's the thing. I keep saying here's the thing, don't I? She doesn't want to be a mother. She doesn't want to have the baby. She's upset about being a mother altogether. She's one of the only cinematic characters I've ever seen where her pregnancy is treated as something out of Alien. She's dreading it the whole time. That's an interesting choice. Now, we know that, because we're watching this movie, that instead of surviving the elements and regaining humanity, Sandra Bullock's story arc is going to be finding that spark within her that makes her want to be a mother and makes her want to take care of her child. And, okay, I'm on board for that. So they're leaving the doctor's office when plot strikes. And people are killing themselves. And it's straight out of The Happening. People are running in front of buses and slitting their own throats. And Sarah Paulson's driving the car. And she sees it and starts muttering and then wrecks the car. And when she gets out, she deliberately stands in front of a bus. And her eyes turn gray. Like they look like the opposite of the Dune glowing blue eyes. And so Sandra Bullock is pregnant in the middle of the street. Chaos. There's no rhyme or reason to it. We hear things and we're told that, people are running this way and that. But even though Sandra Bullock is in the car with her, she's never looked the same direction that her sister was looking, so she's not affected by it. And she stumbles across the street, she literally stumbles across the street to a mansion where this woman runs out, tries to help her. Her eyes go batty and she kills herself. She starts muttering about her mother and she gets inside a burning car. And so Sandra Bullock is then pulled into this house and you meet John Malkovich. Now, I love John Malkovich. You know, he's probably the main reason I watched this movie. Malkovich is a fantastic actor. I dig nearly everything he's ever done. Being John Malkovich, Dangerous Liaisons, In the Line of Fire. It goes on and on. And Con Air. I mean, even in Con Air, which is total schlock, he's fantastic. So now we have Sandra Bullock in a house full of random people. Some are wearing name tags because they ran from work. There's an old lady. There's a young wannabe cop. There's a skater-looking punk guy. And then there's Malkovich. And then there's the owner of the house, too. And I think he turns out to be this gay guy that him and his partner wanted to redevelop the house, and Malkovich, their neighbor, wouldn't let them. So they're kind of at odds. And Malkovich is pissed off because the woman that died in the street was his wife. So the movie shifts like it has to because it's a movie. And it's not a big budget movie, right? Because a big budget movie would have had Sandra Bullock racing through cities, burnout cities, and people dropping dead. And instead, we're going to spend an inordinate amount of time inside this giant mansion that she has managed to get inside of, where there's plenty of room to sleep, there's plenty of food, the electricity is still running, and the water still works. So, as far as apocalypses go, it's not a bad one. So the movie then starts to cut 5 years into the future, where Sandra Bullock now has 2 children. We're not sure which is hers and where the other one came from. And she is blindfolding them and telling them that they're going to go get in a boat and sail down a river. And we have no idea why. And so we have these scenes of them in a boat, blindfolded, going down the river. Sometimes they put a blanket over their heads and they can take the blindfolds off as long as they're fully covered. She names them boy and girl, the children. Boy this, girl do that. And they have with them a box that has birds in it. So we have the Birdbox of the title. And we're going to find out eventually that the birds are sensitive to the monsters. And whenever the monsters come near, the birds start freaking out. So they are the canary in the coal mine. They are the alien proximity meter. They are the glass of water in Jurassic Park. They are going to tell us whenever the danger is near instead of showing us the actual danger. Nothing wrong with that. I totally get it. Whatever. The problem with the Birdbox conceit is that it's never really used. They just have it with them. And occasionally they lift the lid and show you the birds. But I don't recall any extended, there might have been a short scene, but I don't recall any extended scenes of them staring at the box instead of listening outside for the monster. When you stare at the box and move the box a certain way, and when the birds chirp, you go the other way. When the birds chirp, you go the other way. And you use the chirping of the birds as your navigation. They don't really do that. That's not what the movie's about, which is weird because, again, you set up this rule. You told me that the birds are sensitive to the monsters in the sky that we've never seen, right? We don't know that. So we cut back to the house, and we're living our lives one day at a time at this house. One guy wants to write a book. Well, he was writing a book about the end of the world, so he's got a lot of theories. They don't really pan out because, again, we don't see the monster, right? A pregnant girl shows up and they let her in. So now we have our second child. So we know that just by watching the movie, we know that at some point this young girl is going to die. And that's kind of a bummer. It doesn't provide any real tension. It's not a matter of it's just a matter of when. At some point, this woman's going to die because she's not in the rest of the movie. Well, apparently, going by that assumption, everybody's going to die except Sandra Bullock because in the 5-year jump, she's the only one, which is weird because she starts falling for this guy, this really nice guy that's in the house too. And he's going to protect her. And he's like, one of his lines, it's a cute line. He says that he used to touch one of his relatives' belly when she was pregnant because it would calm him down to feel the baby. So at one point she allows him to do that, and they're bonding over that. And that's that's a sweet little scene. It's very well done. I get it. But you can't just live in this house. And the movie does have them live in the house for quite a long time with full running water and full electricity. And as long as they don't peek outside, they're totally fine. We know eventually they're going to run out of food. I mean, that's inevitability, right? They use at one point the external cameras to look at them, to try to find out what the monster looks like. And all we get is the guy who's watching it. He goes crazy and kills himself. And then they just, Josie's laughing at me at some point because I was yelling at the TV because this guy like really just offs himself. Really gory. And they just close the room up and you're like, no. The guy's bleeding out up there. You can't just leave a corpse in the house. After about a day and a half, you won't be able to live in that house anymore. The smell of his rotting body will be so bad, you'll be forced to leave. Trust me. So, when they run out of food, they have to go to the grocery store. So, the guy that was writing a book, he was the manager of the store, and he had the wherewithal to lock it up before he left. Now, this is not your usual apocalypse, because in your usual apocalypse, everything is ransacked as people are fleeing. But because they can't use their eyes, a lot of people are just succumbing to killing themselves because they couldn't help themselves but look. So the idea that the grocery store would be untouched and still full of groceries, I buy it, because you've set up the rules of this universe. Now, they black out the SUV. There's an automatic garage, and they use the GPS to drive to the store. Hey, that's great. It assumes that the satellites orbiting the planet are still active, that there's nothing blocking the streets of that's too bad that you can't get around, because you can't look out the window at any point. So when they finally get to the grocery store, it's full of food. And I just turned to Josie and I said, well, why don't they just move there? All it would take is like one more trip in the SUV to bring everybody to the store, and then they're set for food for at least 2 or 3 years. Like it's that stocked full of food, right? It has not been ransacked at all. Ian Malkovich even makes a joke about like, I'm just going to move in here. But that's never explored. And I tried to explain to Josie, well, in the movie The Mist, that's basically the plot, is that everybody ended up at the grocery store. Because that's where the food is. Fresh water, canned meats, food that doesn't spoil, food that does spoil that you eat first, right? So at the grocery store, we encounter our first bit of absolute weirdness in this movie. And that there's a guy locked, I assume in the freezer, who's begging to be let out. Not the freezer, the loading dock. So at some point, where he's at opens up into the outside world. And when they open it up, he's got gray eyes, and he grabs the grocery clerk and screams something about, it's beautiful to look at, I'm going to make you look at it. And that guy's gone now. But it's our first indication that Some people looked at whatever the monster was, and instead of killing themselves, embraced it. These are bad people. The bad people, I'm extrapolating because the movie doesn't really give you this information. The bad people looked at it and instead of killing themselves, embraced it, and either this guy went nuts and needed other people to see it, right? Whatever that is. But again, it's not fully explored. So we get back to the house. Bullock's hooked up with this guy, and Malkovich doesn't want anybody else let in the house. So, of course, they let somebody else in the house. They let in this mousy little dude who looks like Henry, what's his name? Henry Gibson from the Blues Brothers. And you know something's off with him. I mean, he does everything but do the shifty eye look into the camera, right? And eventually, we have a culmination. We have our crescendo. And the crescendo is the babies are due at the same time. The one girl goes into labor, and Sandra Bullock goes into labor right after. So now we've got 2 babies being born and chaos in the house. So during the chaos of the house, and I'm sort of truncating a little bit of it. The chaos of the house is the wannabe cop and the punk rocker dude leave. They drive off in the car, so now the car's gone. Maybe that's why they can't move, because the car's gone. So they are never heard of again. They don't ever show up again. They're just out of the movie. Maybe there's going to be a side sequel. I don't know. I don't care about them because I don't care about them. They have a slight nude scene in the movie, and it was just like gratuitous. I don't get it. The babies are being born, and the crazy guy decides to go. That's when he decides to go crazy. He starts looking at his drawings that he's made of the monster, which are very Cthulhu, which we assumed, tentacles and very Stranger Things looking, which is Cthulhu too. So he goes to kill Malkovich, and they've locked Malkovich in the garage because Malkovich doesn't trust anybody, right? Rightfully so. Malkovich is the only sane one in the whole movie. And the bad guy, the crazy guy, opens the garage on Malkovich. It's a very clever throw him out of the airlock, type moment in the movie. So, because the plot demands it, this crazy guy starts killing everybody. He kills everybody except Sandra Bullock and her boyfriend and the babies. So it's one of those plot things where we've got our setup, we've had a little bit of an adventure, and now it's time to start weeding out the characters. So everybody dies. Nobody gets a chance to live. Everybody's dead. And all we've been cutting back and forth to is Sandra Bullock on the river with the idea that the rapids are coming up and that they're all going to die when they get to the rapids because they can't look to navigate. So the only way they can actually successfully navigate the rapids is if one of the children looks out the front of the boat and tells Sandra Bullock how to navigate. And you get the idea that it's going to be the little girl because that's not her child. And it's pretty heavy-handed how evil Bullock comes off in this. So we know at some point she's going to have a change of heart, or we've got no redeeming characters anywhere in the movie. So we get not a montage, but we get the idea that in the 5 years between the beginning of the movie and the river sequence, Sandra Bullock and her boyfriend and the babies now have been moving from house to house until they run out of food. There's a scene that they rip off from the road where the kids they give the kids a Pop-Tart, and Bullock tells her this is what strawberry used to taste like. And there's a moment where her boyfriend's telling the kids about climbing trees as a child and playing with other children, and Sandra Bullock is just beside herself saying, you cannot give them hope. They're going to die, I'm going to die, you're going to die, and there's no hope. And you kind of get a little bit of that, but you also kind of like, that's all the kids have. And the guy's very adamant, like, this is all we have. Without hope, we have nothing. We have nothing without hope. So eventually, the movie has to end. So we get a radio signal. They've been using this radio the whole movie to try to contact anybody. If you've ever seen The Day After, the first End of the World movie that terrified me as a kid, where at the end, Steve Guttenberg's on the radio going, is anybody out there? Anybody at all? Anybody out there? Anybody? There's a slow pull back to show you how alone everybody is. But in the Birdbox world, things still work. They've still got batteries and who knows what else. And so they get a message from somebody that there's this sanctuary and it's like 5 miles away. And they just have to get to it down the river. And he's like, the guy on the radio is like, just be careful of the rapids. So we get all of everything that we needed for the setup to the end is all like thrown at us in one fell swoop. The only missing part is, where'd the boyfriend go? Well, as soon as they decide to navigate the rapids and get the boat or whatever, bad guys show up at the front door. They show up at the front door, and they're the mutants now with gray eyes who've seen the monster and embraced it, but they didn't go crazy. They've turned into like Mad Max. So it begs so many questions that are never going to get answered. Like, why would they go around bothering people? If you're the only people in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? You ever heard that? You ever read Rat King, where this guy's in a concentration camp, but because he can get things, he's the king. And when the war ends and they don't need his services anymore, he's beside himself because he was better in the system of the camp than he is outside, right? So if you're sighted in a world where nobody can look at the sky or they die, why wouldn't you just go to a shopping mall and make Eden for you, right? Why would you bother? They never really say like that they're driven to go make people look at the sky, because when they meet the boyfriend, they just shoot him. They don't sit and go, look, we don't want to kill you. We want you to look at the sky. We just want you to take your blindfold off. There's a little bit of that, but if that's your goal, you would have a stun gun or a net gun. I mean, the guy can't see. The guy that you're after can't see you. So you would just play the waiting game. You wouldn't have to confront him. And instead, he shoots everybody. And then they shoot him and he dies. And the bad guys are dead and the good guy. And you're like, oh, plot. And that's where the movie just went off the rails. Because at that point, literally nothing makes sense anymore. Nothing. You've got people that can see and they're out in the sticks bothering, hopefully looking for people. They're looking for people, right? Why? Why would you risk any of your citizens looking for people that don't matter? They can't see, they can't go out of their house. They're zero threat to you. The movie never explains any of this. They don't even hint at it. You're just supposed to accept that this is how the boyfriend dies. Imagine if, as you've seen the movie, imagine if he gets on the boat with them, and to navigate the rapids, he takes his blindfold off. And it's his final gift to Bullock and her children. Like, that would be, oh my God. You ever seen Dante's Peak, where the grandma gets out of the boat, the lake has turned to acid, and she gets out of the boat and pulls them to safety before the boat disintegrates? That's a hero's death in a movie. That's what you do. You hold the rock up so everybody can go under, right? What? This seems so obvious to me. This is writing 101. And instead, the way they tell your story is they don't tell it. The characters do things. And I nailed the finale at the beginning of the movie. I said, if it's a movie about not looking at the sky or you're going to die, then The finale is going to be a city full of blind people who are never in any danger because they can't be goaded into looking. So Bullock and the kids navigate the rapids. Their boat is destroyed. They're flung into the river. Bullock saves her son and then miraculously saves the little girl and the birds. There's no sacrifice on her part at any time, right? Other than not making the little girl stare at the sky to get them through the rapids. Or, I don't know, going to shore and walking the rest of the way. Oh my God. This maddening movie. If you know the rapids are coming up and that the odds of successfully navigating the rapids are 0 and that one of your children is going to die, you take the boat to shore and you hike the rest of the way and you take the risk. You don't go into the rapids, fingers crossed, blindfolds on. You just don't. I'm a parent. You don't. I've taken my kids away from rides at a carnival because I didn't like the look of the ride or the operator. And you think I would go on a rapids with them, blindfolded? Anyways, they all survive. They get to shore. And then the monster has his last attack on them where not only is the monster something you can't look at, but now the monster is in your brain telling you to take your blindfold off. The monster mimics Sandra Bullock to the little girl and tells her to take her blindfold off. This has never been shown in the movie to be a power that the monster has. 0, 0, 0. If so, the monster would have been at the door, telling everybody it's safe to come outside. It would have said, we're the army. We've taken care of it. Come outside with your blindfolds off. It's all good. I mean, the movie's over at that point, right? The movie's over if the monster can mimic human speech and subterfuge. But they save it for the end. Bullock champions that, she's going to save the day because she now cares about these children. You know, faced with losing them, she now cares about them. And when they get to the sanctuary and knock on the door, yes, it is run by blind people who never had any problems because they've been blind since birth. They have no curiosity of looking at the monster. They can't be goaded to look at the monster. And they've created this sanctuary where the sun comes in, but nobody's really looking outside. They're growing crops. So you can't grow crops without sunlight. But you can have sunlight unless you leave a space for the monster to peek in. So it's never really explained. And Sandra Bullock has admitted to the children that her boyfriend was right. They're going to be able to climb a tree and play with other kids. So when they get there and take their blindfolds off, there are other children. And she was right. And hope springs eternal. And she gives them names at the end, not just girl and boy. And the birds in the bird box are freed because the birds in the bird box represented her insatiable need to protect everything at all costs, and that freedom was a luxury they were not allowed to have. And now that they have it, the birds are free, the kids are free, and the movie freaking ends. Are you joking? You've already told us that there are bands of roving bad guys out there who can show up at your door at any time with the ability to see, and the movie just ends with all these people. Like Bullock meets her doctor. She meets her doctor of all people. It's a bigger coincidence than the end of War of the Worlds when Tom Cruise's son walks up after clearly being shown to us that he died. So Birdbox is a mixed bag. Sandra Bullock's a great actress. She's great in this movie. It's a very well done movie, but it doesn't make a lick of sense. And it doesn't make a lick of sense according to their own rules. And that's where I get irritated. You can make up any rules you want in your universe, but you have to abide by them. In this movie, just the rules are, they're more like guidelines. right? They're more like guidelines. Oh well. Hey, it's just as free. It's a movie on Netflix. What are you going to do? So, watch Birdbox. Let's have a discussion on Facebook about it. Tell me why you loved it so that I can see the error of my ways. But it bugs me because, like I said earlier, I spend so much time agonizing over plot points and making sure that things make sense in my stories. And they make these popular pieces of pop culture that don't do that. It's like, well, you don't have to do that anymore. Nobody cares. You know, I could literally make a movie where a slasher is killing people and then never show you either who the killer is or why he's killing anybody. I mean, that sounds ridiculous. That goes against good storytelling. You know, they're rebooting Chucky this year. And the Chucky movies, while not perfect, are good movies. They're about a serial killer who dabbles in witchcraft and voodoo and puts his soul into a doll, which then tries to kill everybody. Well, the new one is about a doll that's not a virtual thing, but like a robotic toy. So it's about an evil programmer who programs the toy to kill. So Chucky's not really alive. He's just a robot that's trying to kill people. It's like a little Terminator doll. Like the guy who wrote the original one is so mad, he's making his own reboot called Charles that comes out before the official reboot. That's going to be interesting. You know, I saw a trailer for a movie called Drone, where a drone is trying to kill people. You ever tried to fly a drone? You make one mistake and it just falls out of the sky. You know, one branch, one leaf hits one of those propellers and it just dive bombs. And yet it's in a house that's killing people. For a guy who wanted to be a storyteller, I know how to tell stories well, and that's not a plus anymore. Now it's how lame can you tell the story or not tell the story. You know, don't tell us anything. The less you say, the better. Oy vey. Oh well. Hey, I also watched Bandersnatch which is from which is from Black Mirror. So I'll be reviewing that very soon. And it might be the same exact episode of this where I talk about story threads that go nowhere. Even though you're allowed to choose the story threads. All right, well, Happy New Year from everyone here at 91 Reasons Central. We had a great holiday season with all of our friends. We had a fun Christmas party. This episode is dedicated to my friend Michael. There was a crime committed at his work, and we were all concerned because people got shot. And we're so thankful that you weren't working that night, that nobody working there was injured. It's a scary place out there. Everybody stay safe. Stay vigilant. And thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening. We celebrate 4 years of the show this year. We're rapidly closing in on episode 400, which I think is just astounding, and I'm so blessed that people tune in and listen. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice, and the show you're listening to continues to be 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
Good night, future boy.